Okay, we're going to try something because I don't have any camera gear and I'm normally not in my own videos, but I wanted to talk a little bit about making a pair of job site sawhorses. I see all kinds of YouTube videos on the perfect sawhorse, and it's definitely the type of thing that you give your woodshop class to invent a new style or supplement an existing style. It's something that'll be endlessly interpreted, going forward. I'll show you what I like to build. It's quick. It's built from ordinary 2x4s. It's the fewest sort of amount of 2x4s that you can kind of use. They stack, they hold tools for you in a lot of ways, and it's basically what I always throw together to begin with when I start framing on a job site. And they stay there the whole time, and then I bring them home, so I've got 6 or 8 sets now, and it's just great to have that many floating around, at least at my house. So it begins with a selection of 2x4s. I generally don't, I try to stay away from spruce if I can help it. A lot of people are accustomed to going to dig through like Home Depot or Lowe's and rooting through twisted up, dried out junk. That has to do with being stored inside and some other factors, but if you go to a $3.50, $4 sometimes each 2x4 in like a Doug fir or a hemlock, or hem fir I think they call that, just select something that's maybe wax dipped at the ends, and which mitigates how much moisture they can take on or lose, and obviously the stack looks a lot better. But this is sort of a piece of furniture, not in the truest sense, but it's not necessarily going to get framed out in a wall and covered with drywall and lost forever. You want to invest in a 2x4 for your sawhorse that's a little bit above average. So what I'm going to do here is I roll a little bit of camera on myself for the first time, which is awkward because I don't know what it looks like. I don't have any kind of monitor. But I'm going to execute the construction of a pair of 2x4 sawhorses here, and then I'm going to speed up the footage, and then we'll talk a little bit at the end. Hopefully I can do this all under 10 minutes, because that's all the longer my phone will run. And now we're probably 2 minutes in, so let's get started. To begin with, I'm going to grab some true 96-inch long 2x4s. I'm going to put a mark at 48 inches. I need 3, my bad. Let's get 3 together here. Put a line on them. And let's see here. Cut these guys off. You want to be careful when you're cutting on an existing deck. Everything's a little humid today, sticky. Boy, kneeling down to make cuts is a real pain in the ass. It's too bad there isn't a better way. There has got to be a better way. Now I'm gonna pre-assemble in a sense, or put pre-drill, add screws prior. What I like to do is be 6 inches from the end. These are 48-inch pieces. 6 inches from the end with my screw, just rough, and at about 24 in the middle. I suppose I could have laid that out first. There. There. You want enough screws to give these some structural integrity, but you don't want so many that they're everywhere you turn when you're trying to make a cut. Not that you cut all over the sides and front and back and top and bottom of a sawhorse, but primarily along the top. I want as few screws as possible, and I want to sink the head deeply, so that if I'm over, if I don't set my depth for my saw, the chances of running into a screw are slim. The other thing I want to do is try and keep this I-beam assembly somewhat symmetrical. The thing about lumber is that it's organic, and eyeballing symmetry here is going to be good enough, and you'll see why it was necessary. Other than for craftsmanship purposes, I'm going to send my legs into this assembly, and if this assembly is crooked, then it's going to send the legs down crooked. I'm going to put the top and the bottom rails on this. I'm going to send the screws in deeply, so that in the future, if I want to switch the orientation of the legs, it's just a matter of taking them off, flipping. If I get the top all cut up to a point where it's unusable, or I want to double the life of my sawhorse, I can do so by simply undoing it, turning the rail over, putting it back together again, and I haven't got to go get and reset the screw height or anything else like that. It's just ready to be flipped. The other thing that you can do is put it together with some construction adhesive. I like a polyurethane, like a PL fast grab, and screw it. But then at any point the next day or down the road, you can remove the screws that you use to hold it tightly while the glue's set up, and unless you're massively disrespecting your sawhorses, that adhesive is going to be just as good as having screwed it. And the added benefit of not having any screws to worry about. I'm somebody that normally sets my depth of my saw appropriately, but some people just go crazy, don't care, and they can't stand the idea that there might be a screw that they would hit, so they've got to have this extremely perfect sawhorse. If you've got a good circular saw, you should get accustomed to setting the depth only as deep as necessary for the project that you're working on, or the material that you're cutting. It's not really a good practice to always rub the blade full bore, sticking out. Any more than you keep the table saw blade all the way up at its highest height for every piece of Luan plywood or what have you that doesn't require it to be that high that you would rip. That's not a good way to go about it. It's a bad habit to get. Everything that you can do to hedge, bet that you'll have a less aggressive the nature of mistakes is that they're passive. It's when you have done something so often and know exactly what you should be doing, but you skip it a little bit, or you nip the corner off, or you round up, or whatever you want to call it. You just do it a little bit less with less attention to detail, that's when you make a mistake and hurt yourself. So if you're always used to setting the depth in the saw, there very well may come a time when you would have cut your fingers off if you hadn't set the depth appropriately, and boy, are you lucky that you just grazed your hand instead, or something like that, where everything is going to happen that way no matter what. But if you install a practice where you're always habitually being as careful as you can be, then the net is a net gain. Therefore, ergo, we're doing what we can here. I'm not really satisfied with that, so I'm going to have a look at it and pull it over to the side a little bit. I'm going to stand on it to get it to go down where I want more, and then screw it over again. Okay, now I've got a set of rails, and we'll take a look at that footage and reset and shoot another segment where we put the legs on and kind of go over the anatomy of these.